On September 11, 2001, the United States experienced one of the most devastating and shocking attacks in its history. That morning, 4 commercial airplanes were hijacked by terrorists. These planes, filled with passengers, were turned into deadly weapons. 2 of the hijacked planes were flown into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City. The impact caused massive explosions and fires, quickly turning the towers into burning infernos. Not long after, both towers collapsed in a dramatic and tragic fashion, leaving behind rubble, dust, and a shocked nation. The third plane crashed into the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia, the nerve center of the U.S. military. The fourth plane, United Airlines Flight 93, was headed for another target, likely the White House or the U.S. Capitol, but the passengers aboard fought back against the hijackers. Tragically, the plane crashed into a field in Pennsylvania, killing all on board but preventing further destruction. Almost 3,000 innocent people died in the attacks, and the events of that day would forever change the world. The terrorists who carried out the attacks were members of al-Qaeda, an extremist Islamic terrorist organization. The group was founded in the late 1980s by Osama bin Laden, who would later claim responsibility for the 9/11 attacks. Al-Qaeda's goal was to establish a global caliphate and to push the United States and its allies out of the Middle East. They saw the U.S. as an enemy, particularly due to its military presence in countries like Saudi Arabia and its support for Israel. The 19 hijackers were carefully trained and planned the attacks over months, learning how to pilot planes and studying their targets. On the morning of September 11th, they boarded the planes, hijacking them after takeoff, using small weapons, including box cutters, to overpower the flight crews. The terrorists' coordinated attacks were meant to strike fear, disrupt the American way of life, and send a message to the world about al-Qaeda's power and determination. When the first plane struck the North Tower of the World Trade Center at 8:46 a.m., few could imagine what would follow. The building was engulfed in flames, and the damage was catastrophic. Just 17 minutes later, the second plane hit the South Tower, causing even more devastation. The scenes were horrifying as people in the city witnessed the terror unfold in real time. News coverage quickly spread around the world, and many were left in disbelief. While the Twin Towers burned, emergency responders rushed to the scene to help, knowing that they were entering one of the most dangerous situations of their careers. At the Pentagon, the damage was also severe. The attack created a massive hole in the building, killing hundreds and injuring many more. The crash of Flight 93 was another heart-wrenching moment. Although the hijackers had control of the plane, the passengers, aware of the other attacks, bravely fought back. Air actions prevented further loss of life, but it also meant the plane crashed into a field, killing everyone aboard. This was a heroic moment in the midst of tragedy, showing the strength and courage of ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances. In the aftermath of the September 11th attacks, the United States moved quickly to respond. President George W. Bush addressed the nation, vowing to hunt down the terrorists responsible and to ensure the safety of the American people. The first step in the response was military action. The U.S. began bombing al-Qaeda camps and Taliban positions in Afghanistan, where the terrorist group was based. The Taliban government had been harboring al-Qaeda, allowing them to train and plan attacks within the country. The U.S. also began working with NATO and other international allies to form a united front against terrorism. At home, security measures were dramatically increased. The U.S. government created the Department of Homeland Security and passed the USA Patriot Act, which expanded the powers of law enforcement agencies to combat terrorism. Airport security was tightened, with new procedures like the removal of shoes and the limitation on liquids. These steps were meant to protect the American people, though they also led to significant changes in how Americans lived their daily lives, from increased vigilance to heightened suspicion of potential threats. the impact of 9/11 did not end with the immediate aftermath. The attacks changed how the world viewed security, terrorism, and global conflict. In the United States, the war on terror led to military operations not just in Afghanistan but later in Iraq, when President Bush and his administration believed that Iraq's leader, Saddam Hussein, was harboring weapons of mass destruction and supporting terrorism. The invasion of Iraq, however, became controversial, and the long wars that followed were costly, both in lives and resources. Domestically, many Americans continued to experience fear and anxiety, especially as the government introduced policies like the National Security Agency's controversial surveillance programs. Internationally, the attacks led to changes in how countries cooperated to fight terrorism, with greater information sharing and intelligence gathering. While the United States led the charge against terror networks, other nations strengthened their anti-terrorism laws and intelligence operations. Despite these efforts, terrorism remained a global threat, and the impact of 9/11 continued to affect U.S. foreign policy for decades. Despite the years that have passed since 9/11, the memory of the victims and the events of that day continue to shape the United States and the world. Memorials like the National September 11th Memorial in New York City, which features two reflecting pools where the Twin Towers once stood, serve as a place of reflection and mourning. Each year, on the anniversary of the attacks, ceremonies are held to remember the nearly 3,000 people who died, including first responders and civilians. The bravery of firefighters, police officers, and paramedics who rushed into the danger zone to save others is celebrated and remembered. The passengers of Flight 93, who made the ultimate sacrifice to prevent further destruction, are also honored for their courage. Families of the victims, survivors, and countless others have turned to acts of remembrance, community service, and advocacy to keep the memory of 9/11 alive. It's also a day to honor the resilience of the American people, who, despite the pain and loss, have continued to rebuild and stand united. Though the attack changed the world forever, the spirit of resilience and unity continues to shine in the years that followed. The 9/11 attacks profoundly changed the world, leading to lasting impacts on global security, U.S. foreign policy, and the daily lives of millions. Thanks for taking the time to learn about the events of 9/11 and their impact. Make sure to like and subscribe for more history content